So the Chavetz Chaim is like this in the parsha. Yeah, it's like this. It says Pekudei Avon Avos Albanim. Basically, the pasuk says that the children are going to suffer for 4 generations for the sins of the fathers, up to 4 generations. Okay? So the Gemara in Brachos brings a steer. It says it's not true. There's another pasuk it's written that the children do not die from the sins of the fathers. So make up your mind. Do we get punished because of the sins of our fathers, or don't we? Umaskina, what does the Gemara conclude over there? Kan sha'achuzim, Ma'asav is saying. It's when they hold on to the same act that their fathers did. If they continue, you hear this, Moshe? It's gewaltig. If you continue in the same acts that the fathers did, you get backlash for 4 generations. Can you imagine that? I mean, a person's going to get punished for not just the sins that he does, but he'll get punished for the 4 generations of sins. Let's say the fathers didn't get all the punishment, so the punishment goes on the sons. That's also a punishment for the fathers. Your son gets punished, it's a punishment for you also. But it happens to be, where does it fall? It falls on the son. But if he doesn't hold on to the sins of his fathers, he will not get punished for any sin that his fathers did. If he doesn't, this is gewaltig. I mean, it's mamish. That's just the Gemara Brachos, right? If you continue in the sins that your fathers did, you get punished for their sins. If you don't continue, you don't get anything they did, it gets erased. I don't know where the cheshbon goes, but it doesn't come on you. It could be the fact that you did tshuva will erase the sins of the fathers also.
The merit of the tshuva, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
I don't know.
Is it an interesting idea? Lomdi mar muzel, we learn from this. Should be yotir sirik adam lezeher shalo lachshil. A person has to be more careful. He has to be much more careful not to do. You have to make sure you don't do the same sins your father did. The ma'an lo yizkuru Allah avonos of a sinner in order that they shouldn't fall on you. Now look what he says. Behina yedua the avon bittul Torah. Bittul Torah is very common. V'chet lashon hara v'rachilus v'gezel. There are certain very, very common sins. Ein lecha adam shenifzu mehem. It's almost impossible to be safe from them. Ubavadei ha'avos lo nizhiru b'zekaroi. And surely the fathers, it's like for generations, they're just difficult sins. Bittul Torah, for example, it's a very bittul Torah. It's a very chamor sin. It's a very a strict sin, but it's something that's very difficult to overcome. Every second you have to learn. Every minute, everything. You're tired. You're hungry. You're supposed to learn. You're supposed to be learning 24/7. And they asked the Rosh Yeshiva, Reb Chaim Volozhin. They asked the Rosh Yeshiva, what's the schedule of the yeshiva? So he told them, from 8 to 9, 8 to 8:30 we eat breakfast, 12 to 12:30 we have lunch, or let's say 1:30 to 2, and from 7 to 7:30 we have dinner. So he said, that's the schedule of the yeshiva? He says, yes, every other minute we're learning. That's the schedule. If you want to make a schedule, you have to make a schedule when you're not learning, not when you're learning. Schedule is when don't you learn. It's a famous story. It's a famous story. It's sleeping, right? But those are the schedule is when you don't learn, when you eat, when you sleep. That's the schedule of the yeshiva. Well, Mistama Nikshal Beham. So Mistama, they were over Bittul Torah, right? The Im Kain Im Gam Anu Lonis here Beham. Therefore, if we're not careful in them, Hala Yiskanu Avanos Avosenu Aleinu. The sins of our father are going to fall on us also. Ad Arbadoros, for 4 generations. Therefore, we have to strengthen ourselves with all of our strength in order to not have this happen. Now, look what he's going to say. He talked about 4 or 5 different sins, but he's going to focus on one. Person should learn and learn and learn. If you learn Torah, you're not going to come over the other sins. So he gives us a key to overcome this problem. Since there are many common sins. Lashon Hara, Rechiles, he even says Gezel, stealing. What do you mean stealing? It doesn't mean outright thievery. It means that you borrow a guy's thing, or you it can happen. If you're not very careful, it's the kind of a thing, you're not careful. You say how many times you borrowed 5 shekels from a guy, you tell him you'll pay him back, you didn't write a star, and then time went by, and then that was it. But maybe he'll mention to you, remember last year you 5 shekels, 5 shekels. I went to buy a candy bar or something. Anyway, you forgot, right? It can happen, right? So all he says. So what does he say is the maftach? He says Torah. Why? Because if you learn Torah, you overcome all the other sins. I want to bring down here my friend translated Chafetz Chaim here, of Yosef Engel. Unfortunately, it wasn't published by a good publisher, but he brings down an Avos Reb Nassan. It says like this, an unbelievable thing. It says a person who learns Torah, he removes thoughts of destruction, thoughts of starvation. I don't know what's talking about thoughts of starvation. I guess he has a munah. It removes foolishness from his heart. It removes thoughts of taiva, of znus, immorality. It takes away thoughts of the Yetzer Hara. It takes away this idea of injustice. It takes a lot of. It takes away all when you're in learning, you have a different mindset. Your head is working differently. You're thinking differently. You're not thinking your normal thoughts that you think when you're in the street or even on Friday. And as soon as you stop, you see it starts coming back right away. But if you're in the Beis Midrash and you're learning, you're osik in Torah, your mind is working differently. It pushes away all kinds of nonsense. Why? Because it says the statutes of the Lord are straight. It says rejoicing the heart and enlightening the eyes. And he says the opposite. Look what he says here. And a person who doesn't sit and learn, and he's not also sitting and learning. It means also learning on the bus. It means learning when you're going. It means talking to your friend and learning. We're talking about this Tosfos, and we had a nice thing here up today with the Rashi and the Tosfos and the Gemara. Thinking about these things. If you don't think these things, you know what happens? Then you have thoughts of destruction and thoughts of starvation and foolish thoughts, immoral thoughts, thoughts of women. The Torah itself is going to be the thing that's going to stop all the other sins. There's also, the Rambam says a very similar thing. To always turn himself to think Torah. Why? And expand his chokhmah. Immoral thoughts only come to a person who's empty of chokhmah. If your mind is filled with chokhmah, then you won't have immoral thoughts. There's also the raya from Yosef. It says that they threw Yosef to the boar, but there was snakes and scorpions. So what do you learn in snakes and scorpions? So Chazal tells us that snakes is the thoughts of immorality, and scorpions is the thoughts of apikoursis, thoughts of heresy. So thoughts of heresy and thoughts of immorality only come when you're rake. When your mind doesn't have anything, an empty head is the worst situation. You have an empty head, you're going to be thinking of sin, you're going to be thinking all kinds of immoral thoughts, thinking all kinds of things. If you fill your head with Torah, that's going to solve it. So the Chafetz Chaim says not only that, but that's going to solve a gavaltic problem. That's going to solve the problem of being punished for the sins of the fathers. By learning Torah, mainly you're going to overcome all these other sins. The Torah is the maftech. The Torah, learning Torah is the key to overcome all these punishments.